Hey everyone, welcome to week 2, where we continue to learn about angles and angle relationships. Tonight's homework will be two IXLs, IXL 7W14 and 6CC17. You'll see that they're both linked in the Google Classroom assignment. Okay, please make sure that you don't fall behind on your work. Very good, everyone, in week 1. Today's essential question is, how can we find unknown angles? We've already actually talked about this a bit, so we're going to continue this week. But first, let's start with a warm-up, a question that we did in some of the classes we didn't get to. So we will start with this question right here, which is finding these 4 missing angles. Now, we notice that there are 3 lines that are crossing each other. We have this line, we have this line, and we have this line. So we have 3 straight lines crossing each other. Okay, that's really important as we do this, that we recognize those 3 lines. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find G. G is the missing piece of this straight line. If I know this is 51 and this is 52, I know that whatever G is the missing piece to this full line here. And obviously all lines are 180 degrees, so in order to find G, I know that I'm just going to need 51 plus G plus 52. These 3 angles all add to 180 degrees. Well, 51 plus 52 is 103 plus G equals 180. And if I subtract 103 from both sides, this is just like algebra, right? We get G equals 77. So G is 77 degrees. I'm just going to, normally I tell you never to erase your work, but I'm going to need some of this room here, okay? So I am going to erase this. Eventually it'll all erase. Okay, but I am going to put 77 in for G because I am going to need that. Now, I have everything I need to answer all of the rest of the angles without doing any more math. I know that if G is 77, then the angle that's vertical to it is also 77. So I is 77 degrees. I know if this angle is 52, then the angle vertical to H is also 52. And I know if this angle is 51, then the angle vertical to that is also 51, which is J. Okay? And so that gets us to the notes for today. The first note that we need to remember, and this should be a review from last week, is that complementary angles are 2 angles with a sum of 90 degrees, and supplementary angles are 2 angles with a sum of 180 degrees. Now I'm going to focus on supplementary angles for a minute here because another key thing that we talked about briefly last week is when 2 lines cross, the adjacent angles are supplementary, and the vertical angles are congruent. And another word for congruent is they are the same. Okay? So whenever I have two lines that are crossing each other, the reason why the adjacent angles are supplementary is because this angle is adjacent with this angle. And obviously, if I put those two angles together, I made my 180 degrees. And vertical angles, if this is vertical, this would be vertical to this one. So these two angles are the same, okay? And that is why adjacent angles are supplementary and vertical angles are congruent, okay? All right, so on to a little bit of practice. We're going to start with this one right here. And without doing, I have to do very little math in order to solve this, okay? The first thing that I do have is I'm going to start at the fact that up here, we have two lines that cross here and here. So I know that the vertical angles are congruent, they're the same, and the adjacent angles are supplementary. So if this is 60, then that means that K must also be 60 degrees. And if this is 60, then this angle plus this angle must equal 180, so that means that L must be 120. And if L is 120, since M is the vertical angle of that, M is also 120 degrees. See how we're getting a lot faster at this? Let's go down to the bottom left. If the known angle is 65, then the adjacent angles are supplementary, so that means that P plus 65 equals 180. Well, what plus 65 equals 180? 115. And if 115 plus 65 equals 180, I don't have to do any more math. I know that P is vertical to Q, so Q is also 115, and N is vertical to 65, so N is 65. And then finally, we'll go down to the bottom right, where we see if this is 55 here, then I know the adjacent angles are going to be supplementary. 55 plus what equals 180? 55 plus 125. So that means that T is 125, S is 125, and R, since it's vertical, is 55 degrees. Moving on to this next one. I do want you to see if we add up 60 plus 65 plus 55, we get 180 degrees. And that's an important number because that is going to be every single triangle. If you add the inside angles, will always add to 180 degrees. We're going to talk about that more in the future, but that's important, especially as we go to this next example on 5. Okay, so 5, we're looking at this. Before we even look at U, V, W, X, Y, and Z, I know if I have 163 here, that this is 163. And if I know that this is 163, I know that this is the supplement, and the supplement of 163 is going to be 17. So that's going to be 17. So now I know that V is 163. I know that W is 17. If I go over here, I have to find U. Well, if this is 90 because of the right angle, then that means that U is also 90. If I go over to X, if this is 70, then that means that this is 120 because 70 plus 120 equals 110. Wow, that's Some Sunday night math for you right there. Y is going to be 70 for two reasons. Either the fact that 110 plus 70 makes 180, or the fact that it's vertical to the 70 degree angle. And then finally, Z, we kind of have to go back to what I just talked about, which was the fact that triangles add to 180. If this is 17, if W is 17, then that means that this angle is 17. And if this angle is 90, that means that this angle is 90. So if I have 90 plus 17, I have 107, which means that Z, if this triangle has to add up to 180, Z has to be 73 degrees. Okay, that's not going to be on your quiz, but it's an important piece of information to know. All right, so finally, we're just going to go over, I picked this example because I like the naming of the angles. I like how it has you naming the angles. So if we look at A, right here, they want to know, this is read as the measure of angle FRG. And angles are always labeled as one of the points on one of the sides, the vertex, and then a point on another side. So FRG is F to R to G. So that's the angle that they're looking for the measure of. Well, it's vertical. See, there are my two lines that cross, so it must be 60 degrees. All right, on to Z. The measure of FRL is F to R to L. Let me just write in that 60 degrees. And now if this is 60 and this is 40, that must be 100 degrees. Okay? ERL. E to R to L. It's vertical. Here we have two lines that cross. So ERL is vertical to that 80. So ERL is 80 degrees. FRD. F to R. Where's D? There's D up here. So it's F to R to D. So that means that we found that this was 40. So 80 plus 40 is 120. See how fast this can go once you know your rules? Okay, and we're able to get all of them in here. Okay? Remember here we don't have two lines that cross, but we know if we have one line here and this is 50, then we know that this has to be 130. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing with you. I just want you to see how we can find all of these angle measures. Okay, now here, it is important that you see that right here, these are not two lines that cross because this is not a line here. It bends. So as you find your angles here, it's not impossible to find your angles, but we just have to be a little more careful. We know that this is 60 and this is 50, and this makes a triangle. So what we have to do here is we have to say 60 plus 50 is 110, so this must be 70 degrees. And if this is 70, this is 90, because that's what this symbol is. We know this is 90, so that's one way we could do that. Or we could have found that if this was 90 and this was 90 and this was 110, this whole thing has to be 360. It would still be 70 degrees. Okay? Hopefully this helps. Work on your two IXLs, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.